Israel's outgoing Deputy Foreign Minister, Danny Ayalon, has been talking to Euronews about the situation in Syria and Iran's nuclear ambitions. James Franey met him on the fringes of the Munich Security Conference, a key foreign policy forum.
Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister Danny Ayalon, thank you very much for being with us here on Euronews at the Munich Security Conference. Thank you very much for your time. Iran and Syria say they're going to retaliate for your reported strike on a weapons centre in Syria. How do you understand that?
Well, I have no knowledge of what they're talking about, but I think the problem that we face in Syria is emanating a lot from the support, the massive support that the brutal Assad regime gets from the Iranian Ayatollahs and also from their surrogates in Lebanon, the Hezbollah.
If Iran and Syria do strike back, what will be Israel's response?
Well, of course, Israel has the right for self-defense. We have our obligation to defend our population. Unfortunately, we do see that radicalization in the region is rampant, and what has been coined as the so-called Arab Spring, unfortunately, is becoming an Islamic winter, and much of it is attributed to the Ayatollahs in Tehran.
On this, the question of Iranian nuclear issue, your Prime Minister has openly talked about perhaps a preemptive strike. Do you not think this is counterproductive, that will in fact push the Iranians closer to an atomic weapon?
I don't think that Iranians need any push. What they have been doing for the last decade and a half is a very elaborate scheme of cheating, evasion, and in a way defying the entire international community. And they are relentless in trying to get nuclear capability for them. The nuclear capability is not just a means in itself. It's only a way to become the hegemon in the Middle East and much beyond. And here I would like to make a very specific point. There is no fight between Israel and Iran. The fight is really between Iran and the entire international community.
Why did containment work for the Soviet Union and not for Iran?
Simply because for Iran, the nuclear capability is not a matter of survival. It's not a matter of extracting economic means. And with all due respect to Iran, they are not a superpower, although they would like to be. I believe that the more analogous situation is maybe with North Korea. But unlike North Korea, which may or may not have a nuclear bomb in the cellar, Iran has global ambitions. So here we're talking about a regime which is very much dedicated to promote its very extreme ideologies. And for them, the nuclear is just the means to continue and undermine and disrupt. Even without the nuclear capabilities, the Iranians are threatening the entire region and beyond, whether to block the Strait of Hormuz, whether to disrupt any free flow of oil. With the nuclear capabilities, not only that they can control the oil flow, they can also dictate oil prices. So I think this is very categoric, imperative, not just on Israel's behalf, but for everyone's behalf, not to have Iran nuclear. And I think that they should not underestimate the resolve, determination, and the capabilities of the international community.
Turning quickly to Syria, do you believe the eventual fall of Assad will be the beginning of the end of that conflict, or the end of the beginning? That this could be a long, drawn-out war, as in Lebanon, for example?
Very tragic situation in Syria, and on top of the humanitarian disaster in Syria, we see a danger of complete disintegration in Syria, on the verge of becoming a failed state.
You think the state could completely break up, that Assad is the state in essence?
In essence, this is what we see, and also what we see is that the fallback for Assad is not quitting, is not leaving Syria, but actually fortifying the Alawites' positions and creating an Alawites enclave which will continue to be supported by the Hezbollah and by Iran, and this does not bode very well for the future of this country and also for the stability of the region.
So if the stability of the region is so crucial, how should the international community react? Because the current strategy just doesn't appear to be working. I mean, more than 60,000 people are dead over the past 2 years. What does the international community need to do?
Well, first of all, reach a consensus, and unfortunately we could not get the international community to agree. And with the absence of any policy by the Security Council, it is a complete paralysis. And the result, of course, is an ever-escalating direction and process in Syria. So I think the first thing we should have the P5 of the Security Council agree on a certain policy, whether it's a no-fly zone in Syria or a way to put peacekeeping forces. What could have been achieved rather easily a year and a half or a year ago now is almost insurmountable.
So the strategy of wait and see has failed. We should have some sort of foreign intervention in Syria.
Well, it's not for me to really say, and again, maybe the time has elapsed for any effective intervention. I know that there is a growing debate, especially in Europe, whether to supply the opposition lethal equipment on top of the non-lethal. And this is something that we have to consider very carefully to make sure that any munitions or weapons will not fall into the wrong hands. Unfortunately, the opposition, of course, is not of one bloc, and we see also Syria becoming a magnet of jihadists and Islamist fanatics, the type that travel from flashpoint to flashpoint, whether from Chechnya or Afghanistan or Libya. Many of them now concentrate in Syria, so it's making things much more complicated.
Deputy Foreign Minister Danny Ayalon, thank you very much for being with us on Euronews. Thank you.